and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Barbara. You call the roll, please.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Jess Warner's wife is in the hospital, had some surgery done, and on behalf of the board, I'd like to wish her well and speedy recovery. His first order of business is approval of minutes 95-105. Moved at the special meeting of July 19th, 1995, and the regular town board meeting August 10th, 1995, having been distributed, be approved without reading. I'll move it.
Second.
Any corrections or additions? Okay, Barbara, poll the council.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 95-106, transfer of funds. Move to transfer funds from A 1410.1, Town Clerk, Personal Services Deputy, $2,760, and A 1650.2, Central Communications Equipment, $544, a total of $3,304, to A 1410.2, Town Clerk Equipment, $309, A 1410.4, Town Clerk Contractual, $2,995, for a total of $3,304. Also from SW 911 Seneca Hill Fund Balance, $1,406.64, to DA 5110.4 Highway General Repairs, $1,406.64. I'll move it.
Second it.
Any discussion or comments from the board? Okay, Barbie, poll the council, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 95-107, payment of bills. Move the vouchers number 242 through 289, general fund, in the amount of $29,844.53, and vouchers 206 through 220, highway fund, in the amount of $160,000, $160,324.08. Having been approved, the supervisor be allowed to pay them from designated accounts. Would someone like to move that?
I'll move it.
Do I hear a second?
I would second. We added a couple more bills tonight. Shouldn't those figures be in there?
They should be, but I don't know how we can do that, Jim, without her going through the whole abstract and changing everything over. So I think what I'm going to do, since the board did approve those bills, I'll still pay the people that were due their money, but it'll show up on next month's abstract.
I don't know if you can do that. Can't we? Why don't we add the dollar amount here? Can you change it?
Okay, okay.
I think with no big
If
problem.
Barb has no problem with that, I have no problem. Do you have the amounts, Barb, that we just signed the two bills for? What was it? $845 even?
Yeah.
Okay, plus we did one for $5, right?
No, that's it.
Well, that includes both of them? Okay, then let's add a total of $845 to that. We'll take that voucher 289 and we'll make it 290, 242 through 290, or 291. I'm sorry, there's two of them. 291.
That included the election inspector too?
Yes.
Okay, so
Right.
that's exactly the figure.
Right. Oh, you had that one, so it is 290, and it is 840 instead of 845 then. Okay, so 242 through 290. And then we'll add $845 to the total.
840.
Or 840.
$5 is off.
Okay, 844, 840. Okay, so let's change that to $30,684.53 instead of $29,844.33.
Your figure again, Howard?
$30,684.53.
That's right.
And the vouchers are 242 through 290. Do you want to move that again? With the
I'll move it.
Okay. And you're going to second it
I'll
again,
second,
Jim?
yes,
Okay.
sure.
Barbie, poll the council.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next item on the agenda is communications. Within the past month, we received a petition from a number of people who live on the Owens Road. It says, "We the people who live on or travel the Owens Road do hereby request the Volney Town Board to contact Conrail for the purpose of representing us in our endeavor to get the railroad tracks fixed. As they are now, travel over them is treacherous and damaging to our vehicles. It makes our automobiles go out of alignment, wears out the springs and tires. Therefore, we are asking that the Volney Town Board do something to see that these tracks are repaired." I've made several calls to Conrail myself over this issue in the past, in recent past as well. And I know this has been an ongoing issue as long as I've been on the town board. But we'll continue to pursue this any way we can. Unfortunately, they don't seem to respond very well.
But they are worse than they were,
Yes.
because even at 15 miles an hour, it really shakes you up going over that now.
Mhm.
So
Okay,
it's,
just stop.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's really bad now.
Yeah. Well, Conrail is aware of the situation, but they just don't seem to want to do anything about it.
Have
But-
we contacted our attorney and asked him if
Um,
there's anything that any legal recourse we have?
I don't know if that's ever been done in the past. I haven't done it, but I could call him and ask about that.
Would you call Rob?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause we should do something, that's terrible.
We received another response from the Department of Transportation, State of New York. Dear Ms. McEwen, request for a lower speed limit on Shortcut Road. They keep confusing the request that was made several months back for Shortcut Road. In response to your request, we have completed a study of the subject road. Our review indicated that the existing roadside development and highway characteristics justify retaining the existing speed limit. Based on these findings, we have determined that a reduced speed limit is not appropriate at this time. Barry Stevens, Regional Traffic Engineer. This is the second response I think we've gotten from them on the same issue, that they keep confusing the road that's being asked for a lower speed limit. And I believe it's 45 from, and that road included.
But the
Okay,
worst part
but-
is 45.
No, they're only responding to the Shortcut Road, not the rest of it, so we'll look into that again and see what's going on. We also made a request for Route 3 near the Volney Elementary School. Actually, the school system made the request, and I received a response from the DOT on that. Our traffic engineers have completed their review of the above section of highway and determined that the conditions required for a school speed limit as listed in your July 5th letter are not present. Specifically, there is no supervised crosswalk. Based on this, establishing a school speed limit would not be appropriate at this time. If the above conditions change, please notify this office in writing and we will conduct another review. Your interest in this matter has been greatly appreciated. Barry Stevens, Regional Traffic Engineer. So I guess there won't be a speed change in that area unless they put a crosswalk in. Another letter concerning roads, and this doesn't happen to be in our town, but I'm sure a lot of people in our town use this road, and it's, again, from the DOT. As you're aware, the New York State Department of Transportation anticipates letting a contract in the spring of 1996, which includes a replacement of a deficient culvert along Route 3 in the town of Palermo. Due to the replacement of the culvert, Route 3 will be closed to through traffic for approximately 1 month during the 1996 construction season. It is anticipated that traffic will be detoured to Route 49 and 264. It is my understanding that this detour is approximately 4.2 miles long, while the normal travel length of Route 3 through the detoured area is 2.8 miles. Local traffic will have the option of circulating on local roads. And just to make people aware, this is going to happen next year, if you plan that far ahead. Okay. Another letter I received this week is in response to a discussion at the Bonnie Castle seminar for the Association of Towns this past spring. And there was a New York Municipal Reciprocal Insurance seminar there that dealt with a number of issues, and one of the issues that was raised at that seminar had to do with municipal parking lots being used for personal vehicles and so on. And I asked about that because I've had a concern about that for a number of years. As a matter of fact, we do have a resolution on the books that prohibits that from happening, but it's been continuing over the years. And so I raised the question with them, and in response to my question, they sent this letter. Dear Mr. Rose, it has come to our attention that various vehicles, including chemical and gasoline trucks, recreational vehicles, and loaded car haulers are being parked overnight on town property. As the property and liability insurer of the town, we feel that this is not a good practice. This type of activity produces the following liability exposures. 1, it creates an attractive nuisance for vandals and thieves. 2, it establishes notice to the town that there is parking on town property. arguably creating a greater duty to inspect and maintain the premises. 3, creates a potential exposure to the town for bodily injury to drivers and others who use the premises and for property damage to the parked vehicles. 4, damage to town property due to a release from the chemical or gasoline tankers. I would appreciate hearing from you regarding these issues. Please contact me if I can be of assistance. So I would ask the board tonight that we enforce the resolution that was on the books. I don't believe it was ever rescinded. I'll make Bob Kerfing aware of it, and anyone else that needs to know, and the general public now knows that we shouldn't be allowing this to happen, because we open ourselves up to some liability problems here. Okay. I was at a meeting this afternoon for the Neighborhood-Based Alliance, and at that meeting, some interesting things were given to us, and I think a lot of you will be pleased to hear. They have some monies that the state has given them for different activities, and one of those activities is recreation, and also, I'm not sure what they call this. It's called the Pride and Community Project, which will provide visible community service work projects in the greater Fulton area. 4 supervised work crews will complete projects approved by the Neighborhood Advisory Council in the areas of lake, reclamation, recreation, etc. The project will operate from September of '95 through the end of June of '96. And they're looking for candidates to supervise these different work crews, and they're also looking for members to work on these work crews. So if anyone is interested in applying, you need to apply to Debbie Sanders, S-A-N-D-E-R-S, at the Oswego County Department of Employment and Training. That's at 200 North 2nd Street, Fulton, New York, and the phone number is 598-1280. And if anyone wants a copy of this, I'd be happy to give them one. But that also means some things for us, which I'm going to get into a little bit later in the meeting. We also received this week a letter of resignation from our code enforcement officer. Dear town board members, this letter is to notify you that I will resign my position as code enforcement officer for the town of Volney effective October 31st, 1995. State and local mandates are not being properly enforced. The budgetary constraints placed on this office do not support the time required to change this problem. I cannot in good conscience continue under these conditions. I hope this notification will supply ample time to find a qualified replacement. I'll be happy to spend time with that replacement to bring them up to date on the current status of this office. Respectfully, Cynthia Tolbert. So we'll need to advertise a position in the paper this coming week for that. Okay, that's all of the correspondence that I have. We'll move on to committee reports. Barb, I believe you had a report for the code enforcement for tonight. Thank you, Barb. Dog control, Jerry? Thank you, Jerry. I don't believe there's anything for the assessors to report. Zoning Board, Marie?
We had a very busy meeting last night at our zoning hearing. We had two public hearings. One was for Mr. Eddie Ballinger for construction of a storage building for use variance. And usually pointed out last month that there was a lot of confusion with the interpretation of the use variance. A lot of people read that use variance to look at just if anyone has a chance to make a profit, that would have the issue. And I called the attorney to discuss that issue because I knew it was going to be brought up last night. And what I was explained by the attorney was that a use variance is on the property, not on the application. And what we have to make a determination on is this going to be a good use for the property. And the financial hardship comes in when someone's trying to do something and they can't make a profit any other way. They're just going to lose money in some way, or they cannot make a profit. But it's not on the applicant to come in and produce financial statements to the board. I was told in the past that has been done. And what this attorney told me is that as citizens who are appointed to the board, we have no right looking at anyone's financial transaction. And there could be a legal problem if the board does request that from the applicant. So there was some concern. What we did go through, Mr. Ballinger raised the argument that this is, although it's a residential zone, it is a non-conforming use within for zoning. It is an undersized property. You wouldn't have to go and build a home anyway, even if you wanted to use it for a residential zone. And that if he didn't build this building, obviously it would be financial hardship on him. But as far as him having a financial hardship, if he's going to be able to live without it, yeah, he probably could. But I really don't believe that is because it's a zoning to stop someone from trying to make a profit on the property. And that is, and we have a problem with that. But anyway, the vote was 3-1 with one abstaining because she came in at the hearing to go with it. Also, we had another public hearing for VIP structures, and then I don't know what happened to these people, but they never showed up. So we did table their public hearing until next month. Mr. Burtis was sent in by the zoning enforcement officer, and he was requesting the interpretation of an expansion of the storage building for his business, which is also a non-conforming use. However, after listening to what he had to tell us, that he was more or less replacing a building that had been torn down or knocked down or something, and that what the building that he was building was not going to be larger than the one that was out there, and that he was not going to be selling things out of this building, which is a storage building. We decided that use variance was not required. We thought because Eddie had to go for a use variance, that Burtis had to go for a use variance, but if you listen to the actual arguments of a completely different set of circumstances, Eddie was going to be concerned using it for commercial use, but for a separate business other than the one that was there, but Mr. Burtis was not. So therefore, we did not make him go through the hearing process. Mr. David Satchel, who is on Congress 45, is requesting a 20-foot rear yard variance on his property for the construction of storage buildings. And the information was sent to the county today for that. And he was a little concerned because he was trying to rush this through. And what he asked the board was to request a special, if he could request a special meeting. And the board did agree that we they clean up the site with contamination with silt by Miller. This is a state mandate by the DEC. So basically, they have to put the building so close to the property line in order to get a contaminant to make sure it's right on spot. So that hearing will be held. Last but not least, an application was submitted by Parish Oil Company for the purpose of treating contaminated soil and gas from local gas stations on site at the former Doty Oil Company located on State Road 3. This is another DEC approved process. However, the fact remains that that is a residential area and it is a process. And what we heard last night that we didn't know was that they are bringing soil from other sites to treat this waste at Doty Oil. Some other gas stations, some of those sold in different areas. Cindy did issue a stop work order because they needed town approval, which also requires a use variance. And so if anyone would like to attend that hearing, we have changed it from October 11th to October 9th. Which is 7 o'clock meeting. And we decided to change the regular monthly meeting. We're not having a meeting on the 11th, but we're going to have a public hearing on the 9th. And if there's any other business or somebody needs to have come forth, we will conduct a regular meeting that night too. I do have one question just brought to my attention tonight by Barb that is Fortnite. Is there any way that I know sometimes hold court right in your office? Is there any way that we could put something out with justices or we could use this room? Because I really do think it's going to be a large public hearing.
This is on Thursday, DA night?
No, Monday night.
Or Monday night?
But I do think we are going to use a large room. And I realize that, I'm sorry, I didn't even think about the Fortnite. And I was just wondering if
Is there any way that the room can just be divided, maybe have it in the other half?
we could do that. I know I've been in that other room. It's so crowded in there. We could try doing that, but it's not a problem with the justices. I know that Joe and David both held court right in their offices, if there's not a lot of cases before them. If it's a problem, fine, then we'll have to get in the other room, which means all the cases will have to come down and have to relocate some of the furniture plans.
Is Columbus Day a legal holiday for everything? Is anything else closed? Schools are closed, I know, on the 9th.
Yeah, it is complicated.
Yeah, I know. I'm asking if
I think post offices are closed also, aren't they?
post office, I'm wondering if there'll be court is my question.
Yeah, I don't know. I got, they cancel for them,
For holidays, they
It's a
do
legal
lots of
holiday,
times.
so-
so there won't be court.
Well, I don't know. I asked the question.
Well,
I didn't.
the board, somebody from the board asked justices and just probably that.
You may want to reconsider having it on Columbus Day too. Maybe it's not an appropriate day to have a public hearing, being a holiday. I don't know.
I don't think that, I don't know, we've already discussed it with the people that were there, the applicant, and that was the only accommodating night for them.
Well, I know you know both the judges. Maybe you might want to talk to them yourself then.
I'll be happy to suggest,
Sure.
but I just never heard you couldn't hold a public hearing, on a holiday.
I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying it may not be appropriate to have it on a day.
It might be harder for people to get here if they have special plans because of the holiday.
You know, 3-day weekend, people might not be around, so they might prefer it on a night where everyone's around. That's all I'm suggesting.
Well, I would have to go back to the board now, and it's already proven, so it has to be got a resolution change. And our concern is we'd like to get the paperwork as soon as possible in order to give a notice to the people so they know what's going on. The other day, said make sure we get the notice in appropriate time so people, have time to look at it.
Well, you should be able to do that because you still have the access to the other room if you need it. So if you want to talk to the judges about what they can do to accommodate you.
Okay, I will do that. So just for your information, we'll change the 11th to the 9th if the board decides not to. Well, we did talk about the Columbus Day. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Recreation, Sue?
Back in August, we had Volney at Fulton Speedway, and there was really good attendance there. And also back in August, we had a trip to the Chiefs, and there were 25 children that attended that. Upcoming events are Sunday, September 24th. There's a roller skating party at the Violet
Thank you, Sue. While we're on the subject of recreation, I want to share with everyone some things that have happened in the past couple of weeks here. We do now have our basketball court blacktop at the town park. We have yet to put the poles in the ground and the nets up, but it is finally blacktop. So we're making some progress there. But another thing that's happened, the Recreation Committee has gotten together in the last month and talked about the possibility of putting up a pavilion. And I drew up some plans for the pavilion. It's 30 feet by 40 feet. I presented them to the rec committee to see if it was what they wanted. We have some trusses that are 30 foot long that are going to be donated to help with the construction of it, but the rest of the materials we would have to purchase. I got a price on the package to build this pavilion, and the cost is going to be approximately $2,300 for all the materials. That's not counting any labor. Checking with our bookkeeper, we have between $1,600 and $1,700 left in the park fund to do something with this year, and the Recreation Committee has some money in their account that they've raised through fundraisers, spaghetti dinners, and so on, and they're willing to put up the difference for that amount from the $1,600 to $1,700 to the $2,300 to be able to purchase the materials for this project if the board approves it. Also, at this meeting that I referred to earlier today with the Neighborhood-Based Alliance, they were talking about some state funds that they had, and they need to spend them before the end of the year. And what they'd like to do is pay people to do various things like this, put up pavilions, do different things, build picnic tables for parks, put windows in, doors, whatever is needed in different projects in different municipalities, which includes the greater Fulton area, like I said, Volney, Granby, and Fulton. So what they want is proposals, and these proposals can come from any municipality. So if anyone has any ideas for this township that they'd like to share with us so that we can maybe take advantage of some of these funds, I told them today one of the things I thought of right away was this pavilion, because we have no manpower to speak of to put it up. And they said that they could supply that beginning October 1st. They could supply us with a crew that could come in and do this for us if we were to pay for the materials. So what I've done, I don't have the drawings with me tonight for the pavilion itself. It's a very simple structure, 6 by 6 poles with a 30 foot by 40 foot roof, concrete floor, and just a basic shell. But what I did today, in anticipation of explaining this to everyone, I just drew up a little chart that the Recreation Committee would like to recommend to this town board. And what it does is show the second phase of the park. We've pretty much completed the first phase except for the infield area of the ball field. We need to do that yet for next year so that it can be utilized next summer. But phase 2, which is the next section right next to phase 1, what we'd like to see is possibly the pavilion built right in this area here, and between the pavilion and the volleyball and basketball courts have an area designated for the playground, which is about 100 feet by 80 feet, which is more than adequate for what any of us had anticipated for this park. The pavilion, again, we can build for $2,300 with $1,600 coming from our park fund that we already have for the town, and the additional monies from the Recreation Committee that they raised, and then the volunteer labor that we would get from this Neighborhood-Based Alliance project that they're offering us. So within a month, this could be a reality if this board wishes to do that. And with that, also, we would like the board's consideration of this phase 2, which would include the multi-use field, which actually we're not asking to do anything with it this year, just to include it so next year it could possibly be funded so that that could possibly be developed next year. I don't believe it's going to need drainage in there because it's fairly good soil, and the drainage that's over here is enough to carry the water away, so we may not even need to put any drain tiles in there. So all I'm asking for now is maybe an approval of this phase 2 so that it could be maybe considered during budget time, and the spending of those monies that we have left in the account so that maybe we can get this pavilion up with the free labor that's being offered to us. Another thing that I mentioned to them that this board could consider too is upstairs in this building is a long, narrow corridor that is just a big empty room, but there are no windows in it. I'm not sure what it was designed for. I believe it was for the solar heat that this building originally had planned for it. But they said that they could expend some of those monies to hire a consultant to come in and evaluate what needs to be done up there to put windows in and put light in that room and put doors and make it a safe access by maybe putting stairs out the back so that it could be used and have a fire escape, things like that, designing tables and cupboards and drawing boards or whatever so that maybe an arts and crafts program or anything could be done up there that the people of this town could utilize. So they need to get these proposals in within the next few days. So if this board will grant me the privilege of filling out an application, it doesn't guarantee that we're going to get anything, but they will consider it, and I don't see how we can lose here, because all we have to do is appropriate any monies necessary for the actual windows or the lumber to pursue this, and they'll supply all the labor to do it and the expertise. So we can raise this issue later as a resolution if you'd like, but I just wanted to share that during recreation so that everyone knows
Okay,
what's been going on.
there's something else too. Jesse originally was going to bring it up, but he had to be with his wife tonight at the hospital. He and I met with Bob Edict from the Canal Corporation to find out what was required about work permits, because we have a group of Boy Scouts from Mount Pleasant Church, and they're also going to be contacting the Boy Scouts from the Moose Club, because the two groups do work together quite a bit, and they're very eager to be volunteers to go down to our property on the river and do brush clearing. And then Jesse suggested, well, it's no fun for a bunch of boys to get together and have all work and no play. So he said, why don't you just have part of it be a work time, but then have it be a camp over for them so they can have some fun at the same time. And so that's what they're planning on doing. But see, the land right along the river, by the old towpath, there's also an old town road that overlaps it. But because there is canal jurisdiction for approximately 50 feet from the edge, from where the old towpath was, you have to get what are work permits from the Canal Corporation to use it. And once you get this work permit, then they also give you a maintenance contract. So what it amounts to is we will have sweat equity in that property. We won't have to buy it, but as long as what we're doing is approved by them by work permits, then we have use of the property. And basically what it is the old canal had this slanted down at the side, and then a place in the middle is where the actual barges went, and up on the bank was where the towpath went. Well, what has happened with time and disuse is it has silted in along the edges, and that has made it so there's a lot of attractive greenery along the edge, and they want to keep all of the big trees because that way it makes it more attractive and it protects the wall from erosion. But within this period along this side, and then on the other side, on their property that's the 50 feet, if we want to cut out any brush or anything like that, then we can just, because the work permit said they wanted to know what your plan was. So we didn't know if we had to go to a planner or something involved, but they said no, you can do these plans in very tiny steps. So what we're doing is the first part of the plan is brush clearing, making it so that the path that already exists is wider. You don't get hit in the head with tree limbs when you go through. You don't have berry bushes slapping you in the leg. And then and general maintenance of the path, because there's also a few places where there are culverts underneath the towpath, and so there has been some deterioration, and that way it would allow our road crew to go in and put gravel and shore those parts up. And since we are a municipality, we would not have to pay any extra insurance, we would not have to pay any fees, but that would make it so that the Canal Corporation land that we asked for this work permit for, we could use for free. And basically they own land right from the end of Great Bear right up to our property and past it. So that would be, and some of the places, by the way the land has gone, there's a couple places that would make a nice picnic area in the future that we can look into, that we would be able to start using it as a town just for cleaning out brush. And so we're going to put in for a work permit this week. They said the turnaround on it is only about a week, and then we will be able to let the volunteers work. They said the basic thing, if it was just an outside group instead of a municipality, there's a lot of baloney that you could have to go through. But since it's a municipality that already has to carry liability limits of over $1 million, that way you can have these kids go down there, since they are being sponsored by the town, and work on that and have a good time at the same time. When we go to do some of the heavier work, that can be done not only by our road crew, but also I talked to Under Sheriff Motad, and we can get work release people out of the Oswego County Jail. There are people that serve weekends for getting a DWI or something like that. And rather sitting around the jail being bored, they'd rather go out and do public service things. And so you can get their work for free. And since they are covered by Oswego County's insurance, that wouldn't be an insurance problem for the town either. So things are moving along so that we can get things done down there at no cost to the town. I also called about the grant. There's been a lot of questions about that. And they said that they have met and they have prioritized which projects they would like to see funded first. However, they still have not gotten the go-ahead from the budget department of exactly how much money they do have, because the state budget process is a little more involved than ours is. They set what the budget is, but then they have to go look and see if they've really got it. So, or when we say we've got money, we really do. So they have to find out how much they really have, and as soon as they do and release the funds, then we'll be notified how high up we are on the list.
I have one question, Claudia. I think it's a great idea with the Boy Scouts and all, but what kind of a safety requirements would we be supplying them with? I mean, we all know the unfortunate fate of a county worker this summer who wasn't properly trained and supplied with equipment.
They would have to be supervised by adults while they're down there.
But, I mean, life jackets and the whole
right,
shebang is gonna be-
and Jess is going to be overseeing what they're doing down there.
Great.
So it will be a supervised activity.
But will they have life jackets?
That's what I just asked.
So I know, that was, I didn't get the answer to that, though. Jess is supervising it, but are they gonna have life jackets?
If that's a concern, I'm sure that that could be accommodated.
Because I know that our highways, well, the problem we've got is I know Bob is buying life jackets, and we now have, I think, 4 life jackets for our highway crews that are working near water, which is, what they have to do, but Bob can't find any. They're sold out all over the area. So I don't know if they have them for the Boy Scouts or not. They might have their own.
Well, there's a good chance a lot of the people that are in Boy Scouts are pretty outdoorsy people anyways, that they do. But if they do lack some, Charlie and I have a lot of life jackets from back when we used to go on the tube races at Pulaski, so we could certainly lend them some.
Well, I think before that is done, maybe we ought to
We
make
can-
sure that
yeah.
they, maybe call the county and find out what the requirements are for them, and we'll try to meet the same requirements.
Sure, definitely.
Okay, Planning Board, Kevin?
The most recent meeting of the planning board was a special meeting we held last night. At this meeting, the board approved the site plan application for Niagara Mohawk for the purpose of constructing a media information center. This building will be located on Route 176 near the Oswego County Airport. The plan that we approved has been modified, and that was based on input from the planning board. And I feel the revised plan not only is an improvement for the neighbors in the area, but will also save Niagara Mohawk some money. Modifications involve elimination of the curb cut that they wanted to install on the original plans, which would have been located between 2 existing curb cuts, which already access where they were going to go. And it also involves the elimination of the parking lot that they had proposed for the building, where in essence, right next door to them, there is a power authority building. There's going to be a joint ownership, and the parking lot for the power authority building is almost never used. So we asked them to look into that, and they did, and they decided that they could eliminate the parking lot, which preserves the green area, and at the same time, it eliminates the need for this additional curb cut. So with those modifications okayed, and they were also recommended by the Oswego County Planning Board, we approved their site plan last night. During an executive portion of the meeting, the board reviewed pending litigation involving the proposed Baldwin Heights subdivision located on Baldwin Road. The original plan was turned down by the board a couple months ago. The applicant filed an Article 78 petition. Last night we reviewed substantial proposed modifications to the plan suggested by the developer. After review, the board has agreed to give this proposal, this revised proposal, serious consideration. scheduling the public hearing for October 11th. In the meantime, this basically puts the litigation on hold pending dismissal. So the next meeting of the board will be on October 11th, Wednesday, and I would also like to remind board members, as well as anybody interested in the audience, that I believe the upcoming county planning board seminar at the Sunny Oswego, I believe it's scheduled for Thursday, September 28th. Must have been all the business went for easy last night. I guess we had some fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Devin. Historian Fern?
This has been an interesting month from the historian's office, and in a conversation with George Kimball, I asked if he was using an old showcase that I used to use as a candy display in the store in Mount Pleasant. He replied no, and if I wanted to move it over to the historian's office at the time. I don't have it in the office yet, but it will be soon. There's also been people in asking for information, and I've been able to help them some in a few areas, and I've also received information from them. And one was a very large genealogy file from Duncan McDonald that works its way down through the generations to a lot of the, I forget that, Dougal that live in our area. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of families going to be interested in that. So it's all
Thank you, Fern. Highway, Barb, do you have a report?
15 days road repair, 11 days long roadside, 9 days machine repair, 3 days of resting and repair and signing, 3 days working the car, 2 days driveway, 1 day cemetery, 1 day cleaning up trees. Wages for August 1995, $19,690.51. Parts and material, $160,324.08. Total expenditures, $185,049.59.
Thank you, Barb. Next order of business is old business. Does anyone on the board have any old business tonight? No old business. Okay, we'll move on to resolutions and discussion. First resolution is 95-108, authorization for drug testing. Move to authorize the Superintendent of Highways, Bob Kerfing, to pursue the requirements of the state mandated drug testing. I'll move it.
I'll second it, but I have a problem with the word pursue. Might it not be enforced? Because I think that this is a state mandate. I'm not sure he's going to pursue it. I think he's going to enforce it. Isn't he
Well,
going to be the officer in charge?
That'll be the end result of it, Jim, but right now he's got to look into it and see what they have to do, what schooling they have to do, how much it's going to cost, things like that. So basically that's what this is, to set it up so he can research it, investigate it, so he can come back to us so that during our budget process we can appropriate money for it, and then we'll have to pass a resolution to enforce it, I would say. Because right now he can't do anything until we've appropriated money for it until next year. This is for next year, not for immediately.
I know what you're saying.
Well, I mean, it'd be premature to say we want to have them to enforce those requirements because we don't have a resolution to accept the requirements yet. I mean, it's mandated for next year. Right now, we're authorizing him to be the person, because I'm not going to be here next year, to pursue it, get the information, get it together, come back to the board, tell us how much it's going to cost. Basically, that's what this resolution is for.
Okay, because, but there has to be someone and he's going to be the one. He'll be the key person.
If he's here next year, then he will be the one probably, I would say, yeah.
Highway superintendent.
Right.
You didn't, okay.
See, it was either him or I that had to pursue this. And knowing that I wasn't going to be here next year, I suggested to him, because he very possibly will be here next year, that he should pursue this. And it's going to be for his crew, his department. So he agreed to do that if we had a resolution to that effect. So that's basically what it is. But once we do get the money and allocate it and so on, then whoever we designate at that time to enforce it will be the one. It might be the new supervisor. It might be Bob Kerfing, I don't know.
Oh, I see where you're heading, I can accept that.
Any other questions or comments from the board on this one? Any questions or comments from the public on this resolution? Okay. Barbara, poll the council, please.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 95-109, authorization to repair 1978 truck. Move to authorize the Superintendent of Highways, Bob Kerfing, to repair the motor on the 1978 Oshkosh truck at a price not to exceed $7,000. I'll move it.
Second it.
Any discussions or comments from this board? Any questions or comments from the public on this resolution? Okay, Barbie, poll the council, please. Jim?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 95-110, advertise for a building inspector, code enforcement officer. Move to authorize the town clerk to advertise in the Valley News for the position of building inspector, code enforcement officer, vacated by the resignation effective October 31st, 1995 of Cynthia Talbert. I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Any questions or comments from the board on this resolution? Any questions or comments from the public on this resolution? Okay, Barb, will you poll the council, please?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 95-111, DARE program. Whereas the town of Volney has historically not used the state allocated matching funds for youth services, and whereas the town of Volney has no plan in place to provide youth service programs for the year 1996, and whereas the City of Fulton Police Department is seeking ways to fund DARE program and the Danger Stranger program, which serve children for the town of Volney, and whereas the Volney Town Board wholly endorses these programs, be it resolved that the town of Volney waives its YDDP youth service eligibility for up to $2,093 to the City of Fulton for the operation of said programs effective January 1st, 1996, and each subsequent year or until the town of Volney rescinds this resolution. Before we proceed any further with this, Barb, is that the exact wording that we used last year for that resolution?
No.
I don't
No,
think so.
the last part's
I don't think
gone.
so. The reason I say that is because the amount of money
It should be
is the
yearly.
same amount of money that we get matching funds for our youth program. Because what it's saying here is that we have no plan in place to provide youth service programs for the year 1996. Maybe that's talking about the programs like DARE and so on. Is that what it's referring to? Is this word for word from last year's resolution that we passed?
No, we didn't have the last part on. We didn't have each subsequent year on there. We were doing it by the year.
I know there was some discussion on that part of it last year. It was there originally. I don't know if we,
We took
it off or
we
what.
took it off.
Can't recall.
What got filed? This is what got filed in your books. Is that correct?
If that be true, we wouldn't even need this.
Right. If that were true.
We approved though. We approved it to be 1 year at a time. So that
I remember there was a discussion on that, but I don't recall what the outcome was. But Barb's saying her record showed that this is the way it was. Is that correct? Excuse me, well, the board is discussing this issue now. Thank you. Okay. That's your official record, you're saying? Well, we can change anything we want here if we want to change it tonight to something different for this year. If this is what we pass, then there really isn't even need to have the resolution tonight, but I'm not, I mean, the clerk's record is what usually stands, unless we can prove different.
But we can still update and just put period after.
We can do
Right,
that.
right.
After 96, and I think it does what we want it to do, and we can strike those last words.
You want to strike the last words?
Yeah, because it's been questions about whether or not Fulton would continue it, and if we didn't have a program and we weren't participating in the city's program, then the sheriff's department program would apply.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is this clause in there that says that we can rescind that resolution any time too, so.
Well,
you know.
I'd prefer we did it yearly.
Like, I think the argument last year was that what if we forget to rescind it and forget that we made it this way?
Right, right.
And then we waive our right without even realizing it, because a new board could come on and not realize this resolution was
Right.
passed. So
It's better if you have to do it yearly.
given that, it makes sense. So why don't we amend?
After 1996,
Here.
seconding, and we can strike that line, I'll accept it as a friendly amendment. You wanna do that? So you don't even have to vote it, just cross that.
Okay, cross out that last line of period after 1996. Okay, I'll move it as amended.
Second it.
Any other discussion from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? Colleen? Please state your name just for the record. I know everyone knows you, but please.
I just wondered, what kind of programs do you have to come up with to be able to use those funds?
Well, first of all, we have to match the funds, which we have, right? And then we have to do the program that they're offering, which we don't have anyone to do that. No, but no other programs have been devised or, no. No, it could be for, I'm sure there are a number of things that could be used for if we had someone that would, you know, run some type of program that those monies can be used for, but we haven't. I'm not sure what all it encompasses, but,
That's
you know.
another reason to do it yearly, in
Yeah.
case something came up that was a good program.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
realize it's
Mhm.
because you guys talked about the same thing last year, and they took this bottom part out. I don't remember. It's on video as far as that goes.
You may be right. I'm not sure. I remember discussing it, but I don't remember what the final outcome was right now.
Because all those people also think
Mhm. Yeah, but also whatever the clerk's record shows is what goes down in the history books. Yeah. Okay.
That's the law, the TVs would hold on.
Oh, I didn't say it had to hold up, Jim. I just said the same discussion on last year. You guys took that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the public? Okay, Barbara, you poll the council.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, any new business that the board may have tonight? No new business? Are there any petitions tonight from the public?
Howard, if you're going to make a resolution about accepting the park plan as presented, shouldn't that be done now?
Yeah, we probably should have done that. Well, since I just came up with this afternoon after the meeting, when I found out there was funds available, I didn't write a resolution for it, but yeah, this is probably the appropriate time before we get into the public comment session. This will be resolution, are we 95-112? Okay, first of all, I guess I'll make a resolution that we accept the plan for Phase 2, which just includes a strip through the middle again where the multi-use field could be placed. And this isn't to say that that's the exact placement of it, but mostly what we're interested in is securing an area for a playground so that we can pursue getting something done for next year with that. And also the pavilion, which we do have funds available to do this year, and, as I mentioned, the free labor. So basically, that's what it would encompass. If the board wants to take a closer look at this first before we vote on it, I'll pass this down.
Are you following basically the plans that we got from Cox Associates? Is this pretty much the same area and so forth?
Generally, yeah, it is. Generally, it is. Yeah, if you look at his plans compared to my original plans, this is closer to his plans.
Well, because
They may not be placed in the exact same location, but they're in the same
as long as
vicinity.
there's the area there, because
It's the same area, yeah.
Wait a minute, I don't think we had approved the play area before.
We're only approving an area for the play area, not actually equipment or anything else. We just want to designate an area that can be worked on, is basically
Well, I
what
was
it is.
wondering if you wanted to approve that is the play area, that way if there's some opportunity
Right, that's what
to
part of
get
this
playground
is.
equipment, things like
Exactly.
that, then the people working on it would know there is approval for that.
That is the purpose, to set some parameters for where the playground will be so that we can work around those dimensions so we know what we've got to work with. It's not to say we couldn't put another play area somewhere else, but we do have an
Well,
area there that could
it's
be
just
utilized.
the way the lines are drawn, it doesn't look like the play area is
It's not
included.
in Phase 2, it's actually in Phase 1, because there was nothing planned for Phase 1 in that area when we...
Well, wait a minute, well, then wouldn't that be part of Phase 2 then? Because if nothing was there, then the second thing that we're saying we're doing includes that.
You could do that, but that section's already graded and finished, so it's ready for anything, whether it's a playground or a horseshoe pit or whatever. That area in Phase 1 is ready for anything we want it to be.
Oh, sure, but what I meant is, if we agree that that's a play area, it makes it easier for the rec group and any concerned businesses or citizens to look into the possibility of playground equipment. And I know, I mean, Mr. Warner isn't here to speak for it, but he's very concerned that we have something for the younger children in the park. He was real vehement about it at the last minute. So I would really prefer that we are including that we're agreeing that on an area for a play area at the same time.
I don't have any problem, as long as that's the way, that's basically where Cots has the play area.
His was over a little bit more towards where the pavilion sits in that drawing.
So pretty much, it's close enough, right?
Well, I would say it's close enough. I mean, my play area was in the far north or eastern section of it, so it's not where I had it originally, no.
And that's pretty much where and of course there was some flexibility in his plan.
Sure.
All right.
I mean, we could call that Phase 2,
You know, can we
include that
put some
section
of,
of
yeah,
Phase 1 if you want. We could draw a dotted line around that.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay. Bill, do you want to see that? Okay, after the meeting, anyone cares to see this, welcome to come up and take a look at it. So that would be my first resolution, to approve Phase 2 for future movement on developing the park, as far as maybe budgeting this fall for activities, and also to include expending the balance of what we have in our recreation fund to pay for the materials and accept the donation from the Recreation Committee to make up the balance and the difference of that, as well as accept the...
Is this all one motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. To accept the...
Yeah, I was gonna ask you to repeat it, but...
Yeah, I'll write it all out. Well, basically, I'll make it simple. To accept the Phase 2 as proposed, and accept the or the proposal to expend the monies that we have remaining in our recreation account, as well as accepting the money from the Recreation Committee for the balance of those costs to be incurred for the materials only to construct a pavilion, and accept the hopeful acceptance of our proposal for labor from the Neighborhood-Based Alliance work program. Now, I know that's real wordy, but you got the tape going there, Barb?
You left the play area out.
No, well, I'll just draw a dotted line around it.
All right, you're not gonna get out of it, Howard.
And actually, all that is just to know that that's where we're planning on maybe putting it in that vicinity. It's in Phase 1. We can call it Phase 2, or we can just adjoin it and say it's part of Phase 2 now instead of Phase 1. You know, the drainage is already there. It's a good area to put it. Okay?
And the monies that you have are the monies that are left from, what, $5,000 you budgeted?
Right. There's about $1,600, $1,700 left in that account to use over at the park. So, do I hear a second on that?
Second.
Any other discussion or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public on this resolution? Joyce? Say your name, please, Joyce, for the...
I just want to let someone know, maybe from the rec committee, whatever, the playground. I saw on, I'm not sure, Volney Road, it's, take a right at it, Houston Motel, yes, right where you want to. You get playground equipment, must be nursery school or something, you know, those spring rains, and out by the road for sale sign. I don't know, that was last week, I don't know if they still have them or not. But if anyone from the rec committee is interested, check out during the day. Possibly, I don't
there's some of the rec committee right behind you, so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that recommendation. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Barbie, poll the council, please. Oh.
How come this wasn't brought up before us at the work session?
How come this wasn't brought up at the work session?
Yeah.
Because I just got through saying, I just realized that there was funding available today. I went to a meeting, and then I took the afternoon to do this drawing. It all came together this afternoon, Bill.
I know the funding's been there, but I'm under the impression from a couple meetings this month that there was no plan. And why aren't we planning on for the whole park, so that if people want to donate stuff, they don't have to wait till one phase is done before the next phase is done?
We have to do it in phases, Bill. How can we can't do the whole thing at once, because we don't.
Basically, you're telling me if somebody wants to donate something to the park, and if it's not in phase 2, if they want to donate something in the other section, they can't do it until we tell them it's okay to donate something.
No, if someone comes forward and wants to donate something to phase 3 that we haven't even talked about yet, and it's something that this board agrees to do, I'm sure they'll do it. I mean, we're not going to deny anyone the ability to donate something to the park. I'm not sure what you're saying.
Is this a firm commitment that we got the help from that alliance group to pay for that? We can pay for the lumber and like that when we get the bill. We got 30 days to pay for the wood and stuff we
Right.
need to build it.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Is it a firm commitment from this
Yeah.
organization?
I don't want to be buying the wood and it just sit there.
No, we're not going to
gotta-
buy the wood until we get a commitment from them to do it. I'm sure it's forthcoming, but we have to make application, which I have to do within the next couple of days, because next Tuesday they're having a meeting to decide which ones are going to get funding, and we'll know next Tuesday if they're going to approve it. Once they approve it, then we will make the purchase of the lumber, but not before that. It wouldn't make sense to have it sitting over there with no one to put it up. So until we get that commitment from them, which I'm sure we will, after the meeting today, I'm sure we'll get it. Matter of fact, they're very excited about the opportunity to come out here and do that. It could include Volney residents if they apply, if people in Volney apply for this program, which is a paid position. I think one of the jobs was $11 and something an hour. I'm not sure what the other ones are, but anyone can apply for it. You know, so this is all something very new that they just started. I was just made aware of it this afternoon, and that's why you didn't know about it before, because I didn't know about it before. We talked about this at our rec committee meeting that you were at a week or so ago, that we would want to present something tonight, but I based that on the fact of whether or not I could get some kind of help to construct it, because we don't have the manpower on our recreation committee to do this on our own. So we needed some outside help and some expertise, and I got it today, and that's why I'm presenting it tonight. You got concerned about it? What's the problem?
I'm concerned about something that has prevented that there was never no plan for this park, even though the last 6 years they've been working on it. Now all of a sudden we have a phase 2 project up here, and why didn't we discuss this at length?
It's not all of a sudden. I had plans in 1990 for this entire park that it was approved at one time. 2 years later, it was disapproved and new plans were, brought forth. And then this past year, we approved phase 1, which we did and approved. Now we're moving on to phase 2. I don't know what you're saying.
Well, what I'm getting at is I thought you had a plan, but then I was told there was never no plan for it. Now,
No, we
I
had a
got
plan.
no I
I don't-
realized that, and I know there was a plan. Oh, I thought we had a plan.
Right?
But now all of a sudden, things are being changed, and I just felt that last up in one that had been ready to do something that we've been working on is not completed yet, and if we don't have the help to do it, why spend the money until we get the help confirmed? Because as you know,
We're
we
not
can't
going to
get
spend the
volunteers.
money until we get the help concerned. That was part of my resolution, that, we would accept their help. If we don't get their help, then the resolution doesn't make sense. But I'm sure we'll get their help. I'm not concerned about that at all.
Because we originally planned this as a 3-phase thing. We approved phase 1.
I understand that,
last year,
Jim.
and this is the phase 2. That's why I asked Howard if it was basically the plan that Cotton Associates submitted, which he assures me it is basically the same plan. That was the phase 2 that he, I believe, is what he recommended. Is that correct? Basically,
It's closer to his plan than mine, Jim.
It's a combination.
And his pavilion and his recreation area was in the vicinity of where this is, give or take a couple, feet or so, whatever. So it is part of the
So
plan,
it's
Bill.
really part
I
of
don't know what
phase
you're
two.
driving at, but it is part of the plan, you know.
I think where the pavilion is there, I think over far over to, on that knoll is a better place for it. It's a better place for the senior citizens to have a picnic area over in there and get away from the stands and the playground and stuff and everything. You start getting
It's
a pavilion-
130 feet away from the sand in the playground, Bill. I don't think we're gonna have a problem with sand.
It looks, if you use a scale, it looks like the pavilion's right beside the kids' play area. And the kids' play area's gotta have a foot of sand, 8 feet apart from the furthest play toy. And
There's
there's wind blowing.
25 feet from the kids' play area to that, and that can be changed. This is just a parameter that we can work with. It doesn't mean it's gotta be right in that location. It could be shifted anywhere in that vicinity. It's a very large area. 100 feet by 80 feet is a big area to put swing sets and playground equipment. I don't think we're even gonna have enough equipment to fill an area that large. I hope we do, but I don't think we will. So that can be adjusted. That's not a problem. We can delay this further and discuss it more, but then, you know, maybe your grandchildren's children will be able to plan it, but
Huh?
I'd like to see it done sooner than that. Colleen?
I forgot the question I was gonna ask you, why this is, how you got what? Are we, how come all of a sudden this, offering, I thought the neighborhood-based alliance was crushed by the tax budget. And they were receiving no more funding. That's why they had to quit the help for the homeless youth and the hotline and everything. How come all of a sudden they've got money that they've gotta use up by the end of the year? And what's Volney committing themselves to by, taking those funds?
Volney's not committing themselves to anything except getting some help and taking advantage of some funding that's there that our tax dollars are already supported.
But how did they get money from the budget? Because neighborhood-based alliance, neighborhood-based whatever, that was cut by taxes and budget.
It may have been cut for next year. Maybe the funding was already there for this year. I don't really know, Colleen. This meeting was only a recreation meeting that we had. It wasn't the whole neighborhood-based alliance group. It was only 2 people from the rec committee.
But Howard, if they approve it, there would be a joint thing. What do you mean by that?
They are the people that run the program, the county. The county runs the neighborhood-based alliance program, as you know.
The Department of Children's Services.
Right.
The funds go through or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I just had those couple of questions because they made a big deal about how, you know, Kentucky had done away with the neighborhood-based alliance,
Mhm.
wasn't going to fund it anymore. And, you know, like I said, they did away with that stuff for the homeless kids, the runaway kids. And all of a sudden they've got this money that they've got to spend so they couldn't keep the hotline going for the kids. You know, I'm just curious. I mean, not that I don't want the park
Yeah.
to get sick.
I can't answer that because I don't know how they do all their budgeting and where their money comes from, what it's got to be used for, and so on. I'm sure that this money must be designated solely for this purpose. Otherwise, I'm sure someone somewhere would have made a decision to use it somewhere else if they felt more important.
I'm just curious. I read the whole MBA application as much as it was let it read. You know, I was just curious.
I just learned of it today. Any other questions or comments? Okay, poll the council back.
Howard,
Sorry.
I'm just wondering about Bill's comment about the possibility of the sand causing a problem with blowing, and I think when we're approving the plan and saying the pavilion's right there, we are approving for it to be in that spot.
Mhm.
And I like the basic plan, but I am concerned about people trying to sit in a pavilion, have a picnic, and having sand in their sandwiches, you know, so.
Well, another thing,
You
there's
know, it
nothing
might
to
be
say
bad
that
to move it
the
over a little
playground has to
bit.
have sand. A lot of them use a cork, they use a wood product. There's a lot of different things. I don't know if sand's going to be the choice material that we use. I really don't know. But there's 130 feet from the volleyball courts to the pavilion that could be shifted around. I mean, you can make it 50, 60 feet away if you want to. It can be moved up in this northern area more. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could still do. This is just so we can get moving. It doesn't mean everything's got to be cast in stone as far as the placement, because as you can see, there's no actual dimensions here except for the overall area. We can change that anytime, because we've got to come back and improve that with this board anyway, where that playground area is going to be. As far as the pavilion being moved any more that way, it really can't, because eventually we're going to want some bathroom facilities, a leach field, things like that over further, which is what Cott's plans even had. And if we move it over more, then we're going to be conflicting with that area. So Jesse and I went over and measured. We marked it all off, and it seemed to be the best location. And we were hoping to get it marked off, but he's been with his wife this past week so that the board could go over and look at it physically before we talked about this, but you know, he isn't available this week and we couldn't get it marked off, so I guess I'm asking you to trust us on those dimensions and what it shows on the map. If you wanted to discuss it further, we can put it off, but that may result in not getting it done at all because, you know.
Well, that's why I wanted to discuss it now, so we could just make a decision.
Yeah, well, what do you suggest? If you don't approve of this particular layout, what would you suggest?
No, I just meant if, I would like to see it moved over as far as we can without causing a problem with a leach field or something like that.
Well, that's what we did when we went over and marked it off. We took tape measures and staked it all out, and we looked at it and sized it up, and that's what we thought was the best. And we went over to the rec committee one night, and they pretty much agreed that was the best location for it. So it's a recommendation from the rec committee and Jesse and I as to this being the best location for it. You know, once we put the building up, obviously we're not going to move that, but the playground area could be shifted around anywhere we want if we're concerned about sand blowing over into the pavilion area. Any other questions? Okay. Barb, will you poll the council, please?
I second.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Jim seconded it.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, I'm going to open the floor now for public comment. Colleen?
Here's another article. These are all from like the Pell Times, the Post Standard, the Herald Journal. The land in question is a parcel targeted for a $9 million strip mall and acreage around it. This is another article, and it's about the option. And option 1, there would be no annexation. Volney would get about $100,000 in property tax revenue from Widewaters. Here's another article. I have not had one call in favor of it, James Ridgway said. Here's another little quote out of the same article. The developer estimates that property taxes could total between $105,000 and $144,000 annually, every year. Then there's a nice little thing here, future development potential of an additional 40 acres adjacent to the center. The county valued that land potential at $50,077 a year. And here's another quote. It's you, Howard. It says, Rose suggested at the same meeting that Volney hold a public hearing to determine residents' views on annexation. But those plans have been scratched, board members say, because they've already heard so much public opposition. I feel the attitude in the town has been made very clear to me, Councilor James Ridgway said. There, and townspeople in little parentheses, are adamantly opposed to annexation. And then this next article is from the Pell Times, says the Volney Town Board unanimously voted against ceding land to the city of Fulton Thursday. And this is from our old supervisor. McFarland had said earlier that he favored annexation if that's what the people wanted. The people spoke. They didn't want annexation, so McFarland voted against it. And then the last quote I have, it says, full development of the River Glen Square Mall will generate up to 300 construction jobs and up to 300 to 400 retail jobs and increase real property taxes. And the last little thing that I have to read is actually a letter that, where did it go? It's actually a letter that Girardi wrote to Mayor Vallette. But, oh, here it is. It's actually something that Girardi said to Mayor Vallette, but I really think it applies here to the people who fought annexation for the last 2 years and haven't given up. That they have shown that they can do what is right for their constituents, despite the political pressure utilized by a vocal minority only to capture the limelight, really to be reelected or preserve their own selfish economic interests to the detriment of the entire community. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I need time to respond, Art. Certainly, this was certainly pointed directly at me, and I understand that, Colleen.
Jim, you know how I feel about annexation.
I understand how you feel, but you had your opportunity to comment, now it's mine. Never once have I voted anything other than in favor of fighting the annexation. My concern is that I firmly believe we should have been in discussions with the city of Fulton. I do not know if those discussions would ever have amounted to a thing, but we should have been discussing. We are both expending large sums of money. Now, you gave some figures on taxes, but when I went to Fay Sanford to try to determine just exactly how much the town would realize from taxes, he couldn't give it to me because he said it's a part of the IDA and he doesn't know how much it would be. That's what he told me less than a month ago. Now, you've got some figures there that are potential figures. They are possible. I have no idea how accurate they are. And my concern is that I believe we should have been talking with the city. I'm not going to I'm not going to say that we would have accomplished our objective of not having the land annexed. What I am going to say is at least dialogue would have occurred. At the present moment, it seems as though we aren't willing to discuss anything with Fulton. We've shut off all, from my point of view, avenues of communication. I know that they have wanted to communicate with us. I believe that Howard on a couple of occasions has come back and said they have some proposals that they would like to meet. I am willing to listen to proposals. I do not know what the proposals were. I do not know if they were viable. I don't know if they were something that could have been brought back to the townspeople as viable alternatives. I know that because we've been so closed-minded, we have shut off avenues, possible avenues of reconciliation with the city. Because like it or not, we are a part of the same community. Your children go to the city of Fulton schools, mine do not. Mine go to Phoenix, or did go to Phoenix. But the bottom line is, when people ask me where I'm from, I usually give my post office address. I say I'm from the Fulton area, and I think everyone does that. And we have a stake in this community. This community is one community. It's not two isolated communities. But that's what we're both making. And I think we should be in dialogue with the city. That's my opinion. You've had yours.
Okay. Okay, Colleen, I'm not going to listen to a debate between you and Jim. You had your say. Jim had his say. I'm going to have my say now. My wife received this letter also, and I'm going to make some comments on it since it's been brought up here. First of all, over $60,000, that's not true, because a lot of those legal expenses we incurred last year were not for annexation, so we can't say that. Although we have expended quite a bit of money on it, more than I would like to see. But unfortunately, that's the position we're in. It says here, though, that our town board could have reached an agreement. Let's see what the other part says. Could have reached an agreement with the city of Fulton, save the legal costs, and receive reimbursement of a great deal more than the annual town taxes on the property. I don't know how you can say that, Jim, because first of all, how can we have reached an agreement when no reasonable offer was made to us? The only offer that the city of Fulton made to us was $30,000 a year, which is double what the estimated tax revenue is, $15,000 a year. That's the estimated tax revenue that this town would receive. The $100,000 encompasses school taxes, county taxes. We can't count that for our municipality. But the $15,000 is what we would have got if we got the whole amount. The IDA has since stepped in, taken most of that away. We get $7,500 of the initial $15,000 that we would have received as a payment in lieu of taxes. But the $30,000 that the city offered us, double the property taxes, was tied to the county sales tax, as you well know, Jim, which means that if that goes through, which it very likely could in the very near future, we would have got zero for that property forever. That would have been gone forever. We never would have got another nickel out of it. To me, that is not a great deal of taxes. It's a short-term thing that would have benefited the city of Fulton only and not us. The issue at hand here is what's in the overall best interest of everyone. And it's not certainly in the best interest of the town of Volney to give that land up entirely with no reimbursement whatsoever.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with you.
And that's what the city basically was offering us, because this sales tax issue is getting so close with the Niagara Mohawk assessments being challenged and the possibility of them receiving the tax relief they're seeking. The county is going to have to look for other sources of revenue, and they may look to the county sales tax to do that. And if they do, then this offer that the city made us is null and void. Means nothing.
We never sat down.
Oh, yes, we did. I sat down a
Many
number of
times.
times, Jim, and I sat down with them as a board. I got a meeting with the city of Fulton, and we sat down with them and talked to them. Then I had a private meeting with Mayor Bullard himself, which I shared with this board. I told them what the offer was, and he was firm about the $30,000 tied to the sales tax. I said, no way, my town is going to give up that property for that offer. And Bill made the suggestion of sharing those taxes. Don't be so greedy, city. You know, you're going to get $500,000, split it 50-50. That was a reasonable offer, but they weren't going to consider that either. So we did not have an opportunity to make any agreements here, folks. I'm sorry to say.
See, and I disagree with you, Howard. I believe that there were opportunities that.
What was the opportunity, Jim? I spoke with them. I had dialogue with them.
And I believe the record will show that you wished for the board to meet with the two groups together and have more dialogue.
Absolutely.
And that's all I'm saying.
And we did that, Jim.
We
did.
did it once.
Well, we did it once and we got nowhere.
But it was after that you came back and certainly were in favor of meetings also.
Yes, and they didn't want to talk anymore. They threw an offer at us. They wanted us to come back with an offer. Bill suggested 50-50.
Did you take that back?
They heard it. It was on the tape. They saw it on TV. They know about it.
We asked that at the first meeting that we had, when they asked if we had any suggestions, and I said, yeah, we'll go 50-50 so everybody can benefit from the sales tax. And they didn't want to hear nothing, they didn't even want to negotiate on nothing like that. You gotta consider this is not just a Fulton Volney issue. This amongst people from Granby, from Thermal, Phoenix. It involves probably about 46,000 people in our area that can save 3% on their sales tax. We have many new jobs created in this area by EDZ development that are creating $5 an hour jobs, $4 an hour jobs. These people that are getting these jobs, they can use this 3% reduction in sales tax. And every time, if you take Merit Board's figures that they're losing $200,000 in sales tax, but that tells me these people have $200,000 in spending power to buy maybe a pair of shoes or a pair of socks or something for the children. It's not just the land tax that you have to consider. You have to consider the working people too on it.
See, but you're still missing the point. My point still was that we should have been having dialogue. And whether you want to if you've ever negotiated, you cannot negotiate on a TV screen.
We didn't.
We didn't.
Oh, wait, now wait. Or you cannot negotiate in a public forum. You have to, you can't.
That's why I went behind closed doors with Mayor Bullard one-on-one, which is legal. It wasn't a quorum of anything. We just went and talked.
We could have gone in, because it's litigation, we could have gone in executive session and discussed this and negotiated. It's a legal matter. We could have done that. You're not going to ever resolve an issue on television. It can't be done.
This board has discussed it in very great depth, I think.
Well, but never with the two.
You're also forgetting that initially, when this first thing started, there was private negotiations. Howard and I were the two people designated to go to that, and we tried to discuss this with them, but all they wanted to hear was, just give it to us. They did not want to hear anything else. People tried to talk to them. The Girardi was there, Ayala was there. They tried to get them to understand this. They didn't want to hear it. They just, either they wanted it all, or they didn't even want to see the mall there at all. They'd rather that the people lost the opportunity to shop at a discount store. They'd rather the jobs were lost. If they couldn't have it, they didn't want anybody to have it. That was their entire attitude. And that's why things got very tense with them, because of their attitude about it. You can say negotiate all you like, but to negotiate you have to have two willing sides.
Well,
And they were never willing to do anything except take the land and run.
all I've ever heard is your discussion of that. I've heard from other people that it was a little different than you've told me. And I've heard that there were certain things you might have said that they were not willing to negotiate. Certainly, I've been told that you weren't either.
Well, Jim, if your idea of negotiations is give away the land...
That is not my idea of negotiation.
All right. I told them I would consider anything. We proposed to them that we could share the taxes on it for the first 10 years to help reimburse them for the water and sewer costs. And besides that, we were willing, if they went along with this on this property, to give them half the property taxes for 10 years to any other property in Volney for extending water and sewer, to make this so it's a friendly agreement, so it's not a fight. And if they started this with us, that there would be a tax sharing for the initial 10 years, every time water and sewer was expanded, that they probably could get Granby to go along with it too, because they have had very tense discussions with Granby about water and sewer also. They would not discuss it at all. There were options brought before them. In fact, Ross Belfiore told me afterwards that their negotiators were so set on they just wanted everything that they didn't even bring that proposal back to their full board.
I've heard other points of view. So.
I'm sure you've probably heard the one about $100,000 a year offer, Jim, which is not true. That was a proposal the county had worked out on paper that they were suggesting could be an option, but there was no legal paperwork drawn up or no guarantee of anything like that, and obviously we're not going to accept anything like that. It was just an idea that somebody had, but it was never put into any form of resolution or anything like that that we could take back to this board and say, hey, look at what they're offering us. There was nothing like that. There was just some ideas tossed around. So that's not valid. But the bottom line here is that the city has not made any other offer than that $30,000 a year until the sales tax issue comes along that it becomes null and void. And given that, I see no reason to discuss it any further, and also I see no reason for this type of propaganda that's misleading, because it's not true.
No, I believe it's true.
How can you say it's true? You know the facts, Jim. The facts are they only made us one offer.
I know what you had said, and I also know what I've heard.
Have you got something to prove otherwise? Because I have nothing from the city other than the resolution that they gave us saying $30,000 a year based on the sales tax. What else do you have that shows it to be different?
How come you have a lot of information that nobody else does when you weren't the authorized negotiator?
The information that I have, Claudia, came from individuals who said to me...
Hearsay. Hearsay, Jim.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean a thing.
Well, I wish that we had...
If you want to base this whole thing on hearsay, I think that we're in for trouble.
But I wish we had an opportunity to sit down as a board totally in a...
We had that opportunity. I gave it to this board. I set up the meeting with the city of Fulton. We sat down with them. We got nowhere. I went on one-on-one. I got nowhere. They weren't going to budge on their offer. What else can we do, Jim? I didn't want to spend this money on annexation any more than you did, and you know it. I didn't even vote to expend that money, if you remember correctly.
I remember.
But I am against annexation.
So am I.
So where do we go from here, Jim?
Yes,
No,
I'm against
I'm sorry.
it.
Please, Jim, don't debate with the audience.
I shan't.
I'm talking with you right now. I'd like to know what you propose we should do. I think we've done everything we can do.
I think I have the feeling that probably it's too late now. But I still don't know if there isn't a possibility of sitting down with the city and before win or lose. If we lose, it's all over. We have no cards left. And at this particular point, I don't know. I'd still like to see us at least, as a board, sit down with the Fulton Common Council and in an executive session, discuss the matter. It can't be done on television. It can't.
And it can't be done in executive session because it's the public's business, Jim.
It's litigation. It can be done.
We can discuss the litigation, but the
And you can
annexation
also-
issue
you can
itself and
also-
deals made with the annexation, I don't think we can discuss behind closed
You
doors.
certainly can discuss those.
Litigation strategies, yes, but not the public's right to know what we're talking
you're-
about and making deals with the city over this mall.
When you're negotiating dollars and cents, I believe you could do it in executive session. That's what you're doing.
And also in that same paper, you made a statement that hundreds of thousands of dollars were spent on parks. I'd like to know where those parks are. I'd like to visit them.
Well, you spent over $100,000 right now on the one.
No, we spent 411. We've got a note. It's like putting it on layaway, and we've applied for a grant we should be hearing about.
And if you don't get it, you've spent over $100,000 right now on that
You
one.
said hundreds of thousands.
You will.
Hundreds of
You will
thousands.
expend more than $100,000. You'll spend
Why?
hundreds of thousands.
Why?
Because that thing is a money pit, Claudia.
No,
That
it's not.
certainly is.
No,
It
it's not.
absolutely is.
No, it's not.
It's going to be a problem for this town as long as that property's owned.
No, it's not.
It's going to be
It's-
a place where there's going to be vandalism, there's going to be a trash problem, it's going to be a disaster.
I spoke to Undersheriff Todd, and he said there had never been any more problem down Great Bear Road than any other road around. That he didn't really understand why they wanted to shut it down, because it hadn't been any worse than any other road around.
That's not what the neighbors around there told me.
And we have talked to the Canal Corporation people, and they have some very nice ideas about the way to structure gating and fencing and access so that people can get down in there and meet the requirements of the Disabilities Act without opening yourself up to garbage and a lot of maintenance.
See, I don't believe that's going to happen, but...
Well, my comments on that particular one, Jim, too bothers me because, first of all, we're not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a park. No one's even said that is a park yet. We haven't pursued it as a park. We've only pursued it as an investment for future development, possibly with canal monies and grant monies from the state and so on and so forth. We have not invested a nickel in so-called park. We've invested $100,000 in a piece of property that we could get reimbursed for and not pay anything for. Okay? And we're not developing two parks right now. We're only working on one.
Well, anyone that's... I would defer to the TV on this one because if I've never heard it called anything but a park.
Claudia has mentioned that she'd like to see it be a park, but this board has never approved that property as a park. We just purchased the land is all we did as a board. That's it. The only park being developed is one, and we spent not even $5,000 on that this year, which we spend every single year. As long as you've been on this board, they probably put $5,000. So not a nickel of tax has been raised for any parks, okay, to date.
You're going to be, well,
To date, not a nickel. No hundreds of thousands, not a nickel has been raised to date for parks,
okay.
over and above what's always been done over the years.
You tell me how much that we spent right now. You spent over 100,000 on that piece of property right now.
Not for a park, to purchase some property that we are hoping to get a grant to offset the cost on, okay? That's it. There's no park being developed. We're not putting any money into park. There's nothing going in there for a park right now. If we get state funding, yeah, maybe it might become a park someday.
Okay.
Okay, to dispel another rumor that I hear going around that it's landlocked. There is a road going down there, as you well know.
There is.
It may be a paper road, but as a town municipality, we can condemn that property and put a road in any time we want.
Oh, you're going to condemn the property?
I didn't say we're going to condemn it. I said if you're concerned that there's not access to it, that's what a municipality does. City of Fulton does it all the time.
Wonderful.
And when I say condemn a property, it doesn't mean we just say it's no good. It's a way of getting access to landlocked property if it is landlocked, which it is not. Okay? There's a development right now over in Fulton, right off of Hannibal Street, by Meadowbrook Estates, that was property that didn't have any access to it. The city condemned it, put a road in, and developed it. Nothing wrong with that. It's done all the time. So if it's a concern of yours, I'm just telling you, don't be concerned about that.
Well,
Okay?
I'd certainly be concerned if I was the person in the area that owned the land that you're going to condemn.
The person in the area is the city of Fulton, and the land is already used by us as a road. So it's not going to change anything. It's just a matter of doing paperwork, Jim.
What it is it is land that is not the city's already, the land where any road work would be done. There's a legal question by exactly how much maintenance we've done lately, if it's under our control or the Canal Corporation's. But Jess and I were told on yesterday, that a maintenance road to go through there, whether or not there was a legal question of whether or not it was ours or theirs, that because of the Disabilities Act, they would of course allow us to maintain a limited access road, and that's part of what we will have in writing when we get our work permit filed next week.
Two other quick things, Jim. I don't want to make this a political debate, but I'm concerned about a couple things here because it attacks this board, which I'm a member of and have overseen for the last 2 years. And one is that we've been changing the rules behind closed doors. Could you please elaborate on that a little bit, please?
Would you let me, I believe that probably.
I hope so. I hope you can comment on that.
Let me see the exact.
It
quote.
says, we can continue to allow our town board to constantly change the rules
No,
behind
wait a
closed
minute,
doors.
Colleen.
Colleen, please be quiet, and Jim, let's not debate with the audience. I'm talking about an issue between you and I right now. Okay?
Okay.
When did we change rules behind closed doors? When has this board done that, Jim, that you're a member of, that you've been to every meeting that we've had,
Well,
as far as I'm concerned, except for one that you weren't aware of, and I apologize for that.
When have you changed the rules behind closed doors? All right. There was going to be a disclosure statement. On TV, you said, we'll have a disclosure statement on that piece of property. The next thing we do is we call a special board meeting, no one shows up, we're off TV, and all of a sudden, there's no need for a disclosure statement anymore. If that isn't changing something...
Because the TV camera's not there doesn't mean it's behind closed doors. That implies that the door was closed, no one knew about it.
Behind closed doors implies to me that there was not another person there. This is the reason that some of these things...
So you're saying the press wasn't notified and it wasn't posted on this bulletin board?
I am saying the press wasn't there.
They were notified, Jim.
Okay. But you can call a meeting for a certain time. You can do things on TV one way when it gets out to the public, and then all of a sudden, when we want to change things or modify or do things that might be politically unpopular, we then do it at a special meeting, and there's no one there.
That's not why it was done that way. It was done that way because we were under a time restraint to get it approved because the deadline was approaching to secure the property. And it was our attorney's recommendation not to worry about that, and that's why it was not included in there.
Well...
And I explained why it wasn't in there last month.
It didn't satisfy me. And
Well, I'm sorry if it didn't, and I'd like to know how 2 people can dominate a 5-member board. Please explain that.
How 2 people...
Yeah, the real problem is that town board is dominated by so-called leader Supervisor Rose and Councilwoman Smart. How can 2 people dominate a 5-member board?
Very, very easily. Just through the way that it's been done, Howard. You
get the vote,
dominated.
Bill and Jesse get the vote. There's 3 votes that can vote against anything Claudia and I agree on. And if you'll note, the most controversial issues you and I agreed on. You and I agreed on, Jim.
On some of them.
Howard and I didn't.
I mean, come on,
So
let's
isn't it
be
the
real.
Ridgeway Rose Coalition
No, it
then?
is not.
Okay. Okay, that's it. I don't want to debate this. I'm just bringing it up because you attacked our board, and I wanted to set the record straight on it. Okay, you've been a member of this board, and you have voted 99% of the time with us, Jim. This thing implies that you've been against everything we've done for 2 years. I'm sorry. Yes, John?
Well, maybe the annexation. I'm against annexation, but I don't think board members should have such a vendetta against the city of county that we almost lost our opportunity to join the
A vendetta?
Yeah.
We're going after them? Is that what you're saying?
You didn't want to join the EDC because it was the same group that was annexation.
No, we didn't want to join the EDZ initially. We didn't want to join it initially because we only had 2 weeks to do it. We weren't given all the information. We had the wool pulled over our eyes. We were lied to about the IDA and the mall. There's a lot of things that contributed to us voting against it initially. But when we had time to look at it, when I invited the state here and the industries to sit down and take the time to talk about it and digest it, we changed our vote, John. That's how it went down.
By board members that it was because it was the same group.
That was part of it, yeah. The same group that was trying to give us a shaft. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, but you're willing to risk the jobs of the people in this town for annexation.
No, we weren't.
No, no.
Okay.
Also, we were not asked not to vote no on it, but the plant manager of Miller's said, if you want Miller's, you don't want the EDZ. If you want the EDZ, you don't want Miller's. At the time, who would win the lottery of getting an EDZ was very vague. And so they wanted our cooperation to make it easier to put the screws to Cuomo. And by our voting no, they had a deal from the state in 2 days because Miller's did not want to deal with little local officials on the state and county level. They only wanted to talk to the governor's office. They wanted somebody who could sign a piece of paper and say yes. They didn't want somebody that only could bullshit with them and then
all right,
send
Claudia,
a
that's
request
not
through.
necessary. That's not
Not only was it
necessary.
not necessary, but this is the first time I've heard this, Claudia.
No, it's not.
It certainly is.
No, it's not.
It certainly is.
Okay, I don't want this to become an all-out political debate tonight, but I think we've answered some questions. Christine?
Christine Rose, regarding Pure Soil Company and the contaminated soil they're bringing over to the oil company on Route 3, doesn't that require a DEC permit, and do they have a DEC permit to do that?
Yes, it does require a permit. They do not have a permit. The DEC called me several weeks ago to ask about if the town would have any problem with them permitting it. I said I would think that they would, but I think it's an issue for our code enforcement, our zoning to interpret, first of all, because I don't know that it's addressed adequately in our zoning laws. But when I said that to the DEC official, I don't recall his name, but I do have it somewhere, he said to me that, fine, we'll just tell them to take it somewhere else. If it's not welcome, then we'll just tell them to take it somewhere else, and they'll have to comply with that directive.
Meantime, there's still contaminated soil on that property. Was the zoning board made aware that there is no permit and none is required because they're trying to accommodate this company by having a public hearing and it might not be convenient for others? Maybe, I don't know if they've been informed that.
I believe they have been made aware of it. Our code enforcement officer put a stop work order in on that project until a decision was made by our zoning board, but I'm not sure where that's at right now.
I just hope Marie knows that a permit is required and that there isn't one.
Okay. Yes.
My name is Cindy Darnay, and I live in Fulton, and I'm ashamed to live there. I don't think we should covet our neighbor's property. Fulton had their chance in their renewal. And you know, Mr. Ridgway, if I wanted to come and take your wallet, you call it stealing. I couldn't come to you and say, I want to annex your wallet. That's not right. And I'm really ashamed, and I think that my town caused the problem, not Volney. They chose to steal, or want to steal, what they saw in their neighbor's property. And it's called coveting what your neighbors have. And 2 years ago, I started going to malls and telling people I was going to annex their wallets. And they told me they were going to have arrested because they believed it was called stealing. And I'm ashamed of the city of Fulton. They caused a terrible, terrible mess. They even have people in Fulton argue, though they mostly keep us stupid because they think we're rude. You don't have roots in this town, but there we're just supposed to sit back and be ignorant. And the people in Volney who taught me more about what the city of Fulton is doing than my city officials have ever told me. And I'm proud of this town board because they're bringing the issues myself. Whoever wins in court, I can't predict. Though I understand that town law is on the side of Volney, and I talked to some of the people up north in Ogdensburg this summer who reassured me that Bolton doesn't have much of a chance. But you know, they've spent my tax dollars on trying to covet someone's property, and it's reducing the budget of Bolton. And I really think that Bolton ought to put a stop to it. Bolton.
Any other public comment? Vern?
Vern Parsons, Mount Pleasant, I'm Route 45. I have friends who live down in that area near Downey, and it's terrible, the dirt that they've been carrying in there, and the dirt that ends up on all the neighbors' windows and cars and anything that happens to be outside. I don't understand how this would be allowed to happen.
Thank you. Any other comments? Christine?
If you contact that gentleman from DEC, and maybe you can ask him, tell him that soil has been put there when it wasn't supposed to be. Is that soil supposed to really go into a hazardous facility? Or why aren't they taking it to a landfill? It must be because...
Well, according to the DEC, apparently it doesn't have to go to a hazardous facility. They approve the so-called plan that they have for remediating the soil. That doesn't mean that it could be permitted by the town, to answer that question. But I'll check with him and see if he's aware of it and what's taking place with our zoning board right now. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Future meetings, our bill signing and agenda preparation will be October 10th, 1975 at 7 p.m. Our next regularly scheduled town board meeting is October 12th. I believe there's no other meetings other than that in next month. With that, Jim?
Move to adjourn. Second.
The only calls that I've received have been one questioning the move to even put anything there on a superfunded landfill site next to it. Certainly will. Thank you. Barb, you poll the council, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for coming.